Hello everyone, it's Wednesday and you're watching Within the Frame. I'm Kim Bo-kyung. Two hostile countries in the state of war. This is how North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un defined the two Koreas as he wrapped up a key political meeting over the weekend. While saying there is no more reason to consider the South as a counterpart for reconciliation or unification, the regime is already discussing ways to dismantle the department in charge of relations with Seoul. With many media outlets projecting North Korea's provocations to continue before major elections, how do experts see the current tensions on the peninsula? For more on this, we invite Dr. Go Myong-hyun, a senior fellow at the Asan Institute for Policy Studies. Welcome, Dr. Go.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. And we also have Dr. Mark Berry, Associate Editor Emeritus of the International Journal on World Peace. Good to see you, Dr. Berry.
Yes, good evening and Happy New Year to you both.
Happy New Year. Now, first question to our Dr. Go. Instead of making a specific New Year's speech, Dr. Go, North Korea shared regime leader Kim Jong-un's remarks from the key meeting of the ruling Workers' Party of Korea. Is this how North Korea usually delivers its resolutions for the new year?
It has become the new normal for North Korea. It used to be that Kim Jong-un would mark the first day of the year with a speech, a New Year's speech. That's been the case since 2013 at least, and that trend continued up until 2020, when he suddenly stopped giving speeches, New Year speeches, and instead replaced them with this kind of announcements detailing the results of the previous or last day of the year's meeting of the Central Committees Central Committee meeting of the North Korea's Workers' Party. And so, in that sense, I think it's not unusual anymore, in the sense that he has set in as a trend, as a pattern. But then I think it really shows that, in a way, his behavior shows that there's essentially a new phase in his ruling style. So when he started out as a leader of North Korea after the death of his father back in 2011, he tried to portray himself as a forward-looking leader of North Korea who was more open and was more in tune with the mood of the public, which was unprecedented in the history of North Korea as a dictatorship, especially with comparison to his own father, Kim Jong-il, who was known as the hermit leader because he would never show up in public. So in a way, the Kim Jong-un tried to be more accessible to, at least be seen as being more accessible to the people. And that's the reason why he also started giving his televised speech on New Year's Day. But probably because it has to do with the breakdown of the talks in Hanoi in 2019, that he stopped giving speeches to his own people in 2020. And I think that trend has continued on up until this year. And I think the reason is because there's not really a new message they can give to the people. The message is after 2019, his message to the people has been pretty consistent, essentially detailing all the bad news that people have to face for the rest of the year, which is a privation. So no more economic development, and also more struggle, meaning they have to focus all their energy in developing nuclear and missile technologies, which deprives the North Korean people from access to food and economic growth. So I think that's the reason why he's not really giving public speeches anymore.
All right, I see. Thank you for your explanation, Dr. Go. Now, Dr. Berry, let's talk about Kim's specific remarks then. During the year-end key party meeting, Kim defined inter-Korean ties as relations between two states that are hostile to each other. What do such words hint at?
I think like a snail that's afraid of the environment, North Korea is finally retreating into its shell. And it's because, in one sense, South Korea has exemplified over the last several years tremendous success, I think culminated in 2023 with President Yoon's unprecedented travels throughout the world, making a strong impression on the world stage. And of course, through the strengthening of the U.S.-Japan ROK alliance exemplified by Camp David. But at the same time, they see themselves still as Korean, but they're basically saying we're a different state. We're no longer talking about reunification as if we were the divided country that we acknowledged we were at the end of the Korean War. But of course, the way that North Korea has thought of South Korea since the beginning of the Korean War was something that was subjected to forcible reunification if need be, unless the population arose in immediate support of the oncoming North Korean forces, which did not materialize in June of 1950. So, on the other hand, we should duly note that the basic agreement that was signed in December of 1991 definitely spoke of one nation, of the divided country, and that was always considered the bedrock of inter-Korean relations. So, but in many ways, I think what the North is basically doing is trying to prevent an absorption, what it sees as a pushing by the South towards a potential collapse or absorption, and this is their way to protect themselves.
I see. It's quite interesting how you mentioned North Korea decided to retreat into its shell. All right. Well, Dr. Go, as our Dr. Barry already mentioned, Kim Jong-un said that there is no point in seeking reconciliation and unification. And after that, it seems Pyongyang began taking steps to dismantle the agencies that are related to inter-Korean relations. What does this mean?
So I don't really give too much credibility to the latest move by Kim Jong-un. I mean, after all, North Korea tried to not really dismantle, but tried to essentially put in the back of in the back seat the Ministry of Foreign Affairs after North Korea's discussion with U.S. President Donald Trump broke down in Hanoi. And then the head of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs back then was replaced by the head of the United Front. So now we are seeing the reverse of such action that took place 4 years ago. But then what it means is that really the substance of the North Korean regime hasn't changed at all. So the people who are manning the Ministry of Foreign Affairs are still there. Same as with the people, the personnel that are manning the United Front. So what it means is that substantially the North Korean regime remains the same. They might shift the name of the organization. But it doesn't mean that North Korea is trying to essentially get rid of the United Front. What they're doing right now essentially is taking a theatrical gesture to send a very strong signal to South Korea and the United States, especially to South Korea, that what Kim Jong-un said before, that now he sees two separate Koreas, that he doesn't really consider the inter-Korean relations to be special. But now he wants to back up his words with action. So that's why he's taking this theatrical gesture. So this is essentially to foster credibility behind his actions, behind his words. So I think, so this is another part of the probably signals what North Korea intends to do for the rest of the year. At least when it comes to inter-Korean relations, he wants to foster tension. So he wants to send a message to South Korea that this year, the 2024, is going to be, at least when it comes to inter-Korean relations, will be unstable. So it'll be more confrontational. There'll be no dialogue. So, but that has been what North Korea has been saying in the last 4 years. So there's not really a major surprise there.
All right, I see. Theatrical gesture. All right, well, Dr. Barry, meanwhile, North Korea is aiming to launch 3 additional spy satellites. What part of the satellite is Pyongyang expected to focus working on this year? And given that Kim Jong-un is turning 40 after 12 years in power on January 8th, what other agendas do you expect him to work on?
I should, first of all, add to what Dr. Go said, which is that the, the United Front Department also has another arm called the Korea-Asia-Pacific Peace Committee. And back in the day when Americans were allowed to travel without a special U.S. passport to North Korea, that was the main conduit for NGOs and academic organizations to deal with North Korea. So again, this is the snail going back into its shell syndrome that I think we need to highlight. As far as the satellite launches are concerned, I think the most important thing the North could do is show they can consistently launch. And he's sort of in the position, Kim Jong-un, of being the Korean Elon Musk. He's got to show that the homegrown missiles can consistently launch and then improve the payloads and ultimately improve the quality of the satellites and the image resolution that they launch. So I think that basically those kinds of successive, consistent achievements will speak for themselves. Most analysts believe that Kim will turn 40, having been born in 1984 on January 8th. There's not conclusive agreement on it because the North never announced his date of birth. But we should remember that the first couple of years he was in office, at least from the perspective in D.C. and New York, most Korea analysts didn't think he would last. He not only lasted, but despite the fact that he only had a year and a half of real preparation from his father, which I think is why Jue is being given a lot more lead time than he had from his father. But after some fairly serious shakedowns of people who were obstructing his work, like his uncle, basically he's saying, I'm 40 this month. I've been swimming with the big fish, the major powers. I met Trump. I met Xi Jinping. I met Putin. And now I'm at my middle age. And that's why I'm presenting my daughter. And I think that's the thing that is very important. And the report in today's Korea Herald that the NIS is now almost completely concluded that Jue is indeed the successor, shows that this is the age in his life where he needs to show to the country and to the world that the leadership will continue through his bloodline.
All right, I see your point, Dr. Berry. Now, I'd like to also talk about military provocations North Korea could come up with this year. Seoul spy agency has forecast that Pyongyang will stage provocative actions before Seoul's parliamentary elections in April and U.S. presidential election in November. But how might they look?
So I think the timing, or at least the way the National Intelligence Service explained the timing of possible North Korean provocations, gives the perception that North Korea is essentially, again, timing their provocation with the election cycle in Korea and the United States. But I think what North Korea is trying to do now is trying to shift the face of its strategy from one of being recognized as a nuclear state not by the United States, but more by its ideological peers such as China and Russia, to return to the previous strategy of reaching out to the United States for negotiations in this case. And the way North Korea knocks on the door of the United States and to elicit reaction is through provocations. Essentially, the reason why North Korea doesn't use nice words to reach out to the Washington is because they want to negotiate from the position of strength. And the best way to do so is to demonstrate to the Americans that they have the leverage of destabilize the peninsula whenever they want. So I think that they are probably engaged in preparing for switching their face of a strategic approach towards the United States. So up until this year, North Korea has been very quiet. They focus more on the relationship with Beijing and Moscow. But now, especially the election in the United States coming up, probably North Korea is trying to show some teeth. And then I think that could manifest itself in form of provocations. But now the problem is that North Korea faces a dilemma. So when it comes to strategic provocation, such as a missile test and even a nuclear test, these are the types of provocations that we are used to. But then I guess for South Koreans especially, we are more concerned about the more regional or limited provocation alongside the demilitarized zone or the non-limit line. But I think North Korea's dilemma is that the South Korea and the United States have such a technological edge over North Korea that, especially when it comes to surveillance and then intelligence gathering, that it's very difficult for North Korea to mount a surprise attack, which would be a nasty form of provocation that everybody fears here in Seoul. So I think North Korea will have to be very thorough in their preparation. So I think they might even be thwarted from carrying out such provocations, instead focus more on and engaging more a more usual type of provocation, such as missile test. So I think rather than a limited provocation against South Korean forces, I think the most likely form of provocation that we'll see this year it could be the nuclear test. The seventh nuclear test that has been anticipated for such a long time might finally happen this year.
I see. So it needs to show its teeth in order to boost its leverage, and the highest possibility is nuclear test.
Yes.
All right, I see. Now, Dr. Berry, we cannot leave out North Korea's ties with Russia and China. This year marks the 75th anniversary of North Korea establishing ties with China. And so how do you expect Pyongyang to further boost ties with Beijing and even Moscow?
On a pro forma level, certainly because it's the 75th anniversary not only of ties but of the founding of the People's Republic of China, I think Kim will give all of the verbal accolades that he can possibly muster. However, he's dealing with a President Xi who's in his third term as party leader, and he's implacable. And in fact, I have been consistently maintaining that President Xi does not permit a nuclear test because it creates instability in the region that is under the suzerainty of China. That's a region that is really China's backyard. Some analysts are predicting that this is the year that Kim will go and finally see President Xi. Well, they were supposed to do that in February 2019 after a supposedly successful Hanoi summit, but that didn't happen. And instead, he took a train ride all the way home and he bypassed Beijing. So my feeling is that China is playing all the sides that it can, but as Admiral Harry Harris said in another seminar just yesterday, the former U.S. ambassador to the ROK, he feels that China is making an effort not to form an alliance too strongly with Russia, with North Korea, or even with Iran. It needs to maintain its own independent direction. Now, in terms of the Russia-North Korean relationship, supposedly about 300,000 artillery shells have been shipped from North Korea to Russia. Some of them have been blowing up right in the howitzers that they are fired from. And this is in contrast to about 17 million artillery shells that Russia has fired. So I think the utility of North Korea to President Putin is going to wind down pretty quickly. And once he has no use for it, well, they build buses in Russia just to throw people under, politically, so to speak. And I think Kim will find himself a victim of that. And he's going to find himself friendless. So again, he retreats into that shell because there are really no good options out there right now.
All right, I see your point. As our Dr. Barry said, it could be fragile, the relationship between North Korea, China, and Russia. But still, we are seeing current ties between the three, I don't know, authoritarian regimes. And against that, would Seoul be able to maintain its boosted ties with Washington and Tokyo, given that there are so many variables scheduled for this year?
So obviously, the foundation upon which the relationship between these three countries are built on is much stronger. We have two very strong bilateral alliances, one between South Korea and the United States, and the other one between Japan and the United States. And also South Korea and Japan are now very close in partnership. So in that sense, this trilateral coordination is much stronger than any bloc, so-called bloc that North Korea, China, and Russia can come up together. And Dr. Berry is actually right. There are underlying tensions in this so-called authoritarian bloc. And I think there are very self-conscious behavior that we are noticing already, especially in China. The Chinese, I think that they are putting priority on stabilizing their relationship with the United States rather than fostering even more confrontational stance against the United States. So I think that that's going to be the main dilemma for North Korea for this year. That's the reason why North Korea is in a way caught in the corner. But then on the other hand, for South Korea, Japan, and the United States, there's nothing internally, externally that could shake the foundation of this close relationship. But obviously, the big unknown is the outcome of the November elections in the United States. We know that President Donald Trump is very critical of the alliance architecture that the United States maintains around the world. That includes the one in South Korea and Japan. And so chances that Trump will try to modify such framework. But I think the people are very unidimensional when it comes to their expectation or negative expectation of a possible Donald Trump presidency, that he'll just undermine the alliance and that with it. I don't think it'll be so straightforward like that. I think the biggest risk won't come from the hypothetical second Trump presidency getting rid of the alliance with Korea and Japan, but rather will come from the fact that this second Trump presidency might be distracted by domestic issues rather than foreign policy. So I think that's going to be the biggest challenge for the alliance. I think the alliance will remain no matter what happens, who gets elected in November this year in the United States. But then we'll have, clearly with Donald Trump, we'll have a different types of alliance relationship, but it doesn't mean the end of the alliance. I'm very sure of that. But on the other other hand, the distraction that could be caused by the internal dissent and friction that we're already seeing, the polarization of U.S. domestic politics, that could be a source of distraction that could lead to dangerous moments, and not just in the East Asia, but also around the world.
All right, I see your point. Now, Dr. Barry, before we wrap up the show, since this is the first week of 2024, I'd like to ask you this question. What direction should South Korea's policy towards North Korea take this year?
I think the most important thing is, while keeping the alliance strong, keeping readiness high, these are always important. I have to frankly say, be as quiet as possible. I'm very, very disturbed about some of the remarks coming from, not so unexpectedly, from the Defense Ministry. And I think it's unfortunate that the Comprehensive Military Agreement of 2018 essentially has completely fallen apart. I'm even more distressed by some of the comments coming out of the Unification Ministry. And I say this despite the fact that the minister is my doctoral classmate from the University of Virginia, and we defended our dissertations back to back in consecutive days. But the reality is that when you tell a country, whether it be North Korea or whether it's like Israel telling Hamas, that you can't run, you can't hide, we're going to prosecute you for human rights crimes and so forth and so on, that's very threatening. And if you see what's going on right now in Israel and Gaza, between Lebanon and Israel, between the Houthis and the entire Red Sea region, things are in a tinderbox. So you need the readiness, you need the preparedness, you need the alliance unity. But I strongly, strongly urge the ROK, as well as the United States and Japan, to be very quiet and let your actions speak louder than words. We have to manage the tensions right now, because unfortunately there's no choice. It's sad, however, that all of this is downhill from February 2019, from the Hanoi summit, all the way through 2019. And frankly, today is the 4th anniversary of Trump's assassination of Iran's General Soleimani, which was more than duly noted by Kim Jong-un. The message he got is that this is how I might be treated, and I just don't trust the United States at all. And that's where we are today, and we just have to make the best of it.
All right, thank you for your advice, Dr. Barry. Well, unfortunately, this is all the time we have for today's edition. Thank you, Dr. Go and Dr. Barry, for your time and insights. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, that's all for Within the Frame tonight. We'll be back tomorrow with more in-depth stories. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.